So there are two images on the screen. In the first image, we have a line of people. In the second image, we have a line of chicks. So we can see that in the first image, the second person is standing behind the first person and third person is standing behind the second person and so on. So in the second image, the second chick is walking behind the first chick and third chick is walking behind the second chick and the fourth chick is walking behind the third chick. So they are in the line. This concept can be implemented in programming. So I have taken a number 20 that is placed on the memory. So I am taking another number that is 18 that is placed after 20. So we have another number 30 that is placed after 18. So 42 is placed after 30 and 21 is placed after 42. They are all of integer type numbers. I will take another example. Here we have 5 numbers: 20.5, 10.2, 22.0, 20.7, 51.9. They are all of floating point type and they are placed one after another in the memory. So these are the examples for array. So how do we define array? Array is a collection of homogeneous data elements with unique name and elements are arranged one after another in contiguous memory locations. So here we have homogeneous data elements. It means that elements are of same type. In the first example, elements are of integer type. In the second example, elements are of floating point type. So when we name these elements, we can give same name to all the elements of an array. So another word is contiguous memory location. It means they are placed one after another in the memory locations. I will take an example now. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 numbers. So if you want to store these numbers in the variable, how do you declare the variable? So we can write mark 1 is equal to 10, mark 2 is equal to 20, mark 3 is equal to 30, mark 4 is equal to 25, marks 5 is 15, mark 6 is 35, mark 7 is 44, marks 8 is 16, marks 9 is 22 and marks 10 is 29. So if you want to store 100 numbers like this, what will you do? Will you declare 100 variables? So here I have declared 10 variables for storing 10 numbers. So for that we have an option. So here I have declared int marks of 10. So instead of writing marks 1, marks 2, marks 3 and so on, I have declared an array. This is how you declare an array. So int marks 10. So you can store 10 elements. But all the elements should be of integer types here because I have declared it as int. So you can store the marks from marks of 0 to marks of 9. So when you declare an array as marks of 10, you can store the elements from marks of 0. We are starting from 0 so that we can store till 9. So 10 means here the size, how many elements you can store. So you can just assign the elements like this. Marks of 0 is equal to 10, marks of 1 is equal to 20, marks of 2 30, marks of 3 25, 15, 35, 44, 16, 22 and marks of 9 is 29. So here I have given values like that one by one. So instead of that, you can give the value while declaring the array itself. Look at this, int marks of, so I have written empty braces, so is equal to 10, 20, 30, 25, 15. So all the values are enclosed within the flower brackets. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 numbers. So the size will be 10. It will consider the size as 10. So if you want, you can just write int marks of 10 is equal to all the values. So this is true if you are giving 10 values. So when do we have to specify the size? Look at this, I have written int marks of 12 is equal to 10, 20, 30, 25 and I have given 10 values but size is 12. So what happens? So marks of 0 is 10, marks of 1 is 20, marks of 2 is 30, marks of 3 is 25 and so on. So marks of 9 is 29. But we have marks of 10 as well as marks of 11. So what will it do? It will just assign marks of 10 as 0 and it will just consider marks of 11 is also as 0 because we have not given value for marks of 10 as well as marks of 11. If you have not assigned the value, it will take it as 0. So how do we declare the variables? Int marks of 10. So in this, int is data type. What types of values you are going to store? So in this array, you can store integer types of numbers because we have declared it as int. So it can be float, it can be character and so on. What is marks? So marks is the name of the array. Then what is 10? 10 is the size of the array. So how do we declare an array? You have to write data type, name of the array and size of the array. Let's consider an example. Int marks of 10 is equal to 10, 20, 30, 25, 15 and so on. So here we have 10 elements. So size of array is 10. So this array can store 10 elements. So when size is 10, in the memory you can store the elements from 0 to 9. So we have index here. Index starts from 0 and it ends at 9. So there are total 10 indices. So indices is the plural form of index. So we have the array as marks. So it has elements 10, 20 and so on till 22 and 29. So we can access element 10 using index 0. We can access element 20 using index 1. So what is an index? So index is a number that is used to access element of an array. So index should be always an integer number. So marks of 0 is 10. Marks of 8 is 22. So we are using 8, that is an index which is used to access element 22 from the array. Let's consider n as the size of array. So here what is the size of the array? That is 10. So the first index is 0. So and the last index is n minus 1. So what is n? That is 10 here. N minus 1 is 9. That is the last index. So this method is called zero based indexing, where index starts from 0, it ends at n minus 1. So we have learned different method of inputting elements into an array. So the first method, we can just write a of 0 is equal to 5, a of 1 is equal to 10, and so on. We can directly give values to each and every position of the array. In the second method, we can directly initialize the array with values. We can write int a of 5 is equal to 1, 10, 20, so we can give the values while declaring the array. So now we are going to learn how to input elements into an array using a loop. So we know that we have to input multiple elements into an array at a time, so that we have to use a loop. So here I have used a for loop. For I is equal to 0, I less than 5, I plus plus. We know that array index starts from 0, and here I have declared an array which has size 5, so I have written I less than 5. So we have indices from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 5 cannot be used. 5 is not less than 5. So inside for loop I have written a statement C in a of I. So a of I will move from a of 0, a of 1, a of 2, a of 3 and a of 4. So we can enter an element that can be placed at the position of a of 0, then a of 1, a of 2, a of 3 and a of 4. First case I is equal to 0, then we are checking whether I is less than 5. 0 is less than 5, that is true. So we can enter the for loop C in a of 0. So I will enter an element 25. You can enter any element that is an integer element, but I have taken an example as 25. It can be any random number. So then we have to increment the I value, I plus plus. So I was 0, now I became 1. So 1 is less than 5, that is true. So we have to enter the for loop. You have a statement inside the for loop, C in a of I. So I is 1 here, C in a of 1. Again I will enter one more value, 40. So as I told, it can be any random number. I have taken an example as 40. Then I value will be incremented. I plus plus. I becomes 2. 2 is less than 5. That is true. So enter the loop C in a of 2. I will enter a number. Then I value will be incremented. Then I becomes 3. 3 is less than 5. That is true. Condition is true. So it will enter the loop C in a of I. I is 3. So a of 3. I will enter one more value, that is 35. That is stored at a of 3. So I will be incremented. Next I becomes 4. 4 is less than 5. Condition is true. Enter the loop. Again I will enter a value, that is 12. Then I value will be incremented. Then I becomes 5. 5 is less than 5. The statement is false. So you have to stop the for loop there. So we have entered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements. So usually we follow this method to input elements into the array. Next let's see how to print the values of array. So we have an array here. The array name is A. So we have all these values 25, 40, 30, 35, 12. They are placed at a of 0, a of 1, a of 2, a of 3 and a of 4 respectively. So we have a code here. For I is equal to 0, I less than 5, I plus plus. Then cout. We know how to print the statement or value using cout command. So a of I. Then we have /t. So why are we using /t? So let me explain that while explaining the loop. So first I is equal to 0. 0 is less than 5. It is true. So it will print cout a of 0. So it will just print 25 because element is stored at a of 0 is 25. That will be printed. Then I value will be incremented. Then I becomes 1. 1 is less than 5. That is true. Cout a of 1. So which element is stored at a of 1? That is 40. 40 will be printed. See here you can see a space. Actually there are 4 spaces. So that is a tab. Look at this, I have given a tab here. After printing an element, it should print a tab. So tab means it will leave 4 spaces. So 25 is printed, after that 4 spaces are printed, then it is printing 40. So otherwise all the numbers will be printed together. To avoid that, we are using a /t. There are different methods to be followed, but this is one of the methods. So here I value will be incremented now. Then I becomes 2. 2 is less than 5, that is true. See out a of 2. So 30 will be printed next after a tab. Then I plus plus, I became 3. 3 less than 5 is true. Then see out a of 3. So a of 3 is 35, that is printed. Then I plus plus, then I became 4. 4 is less than 5, that is true. See out a of 4. A of 4 is 12. 12 is printed. Then I plus plus, I is incremented. So I became 5. 5 less than 5, the condition is false. So control will come out of the loop. The for loop will stop there. So we have printed all the elements of array A. So we have an array A which has 10 elements. So you can see the elements here, 10, 20, 30, so on. So index starts from 0. It ends at 9. That is n minus 1. The array elements are 10, 20, 22, 29. So how do we access the array elements? Using a of 0, a of 1, a of 8, a of 9, etc. So how many index we are using to access an element? For accessing 10 we are using only one index. For accessing 20 we are using only one index. Accessing 22 we are using one index. So we are using only one index to access one element of the array. So that type of array is called as one-dimensional array. We are using only one index to access an element of an array. That is a 1D array. So look at this. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 elements here. So you have to arrange these elements in these rows and columns. So here we have 3 rows and 3 columns. So these are the rows and these are the columns. So how do we arrange that? So here I have written a of 3, 3. So 3 represents rows, second 3 represents the columns. We have 3 rows and 3 columns. So when we write like this, a of 3, 3 is equal to the elements. There are 9 elements. 10 will be stored in the first position. Then 20 will be stored. Then 30 will be stored. So we have only 3 columns in the first row or 3 cells in the first row. Then it will go for the second row. 25 will be stored in the first place. Then 15 will be stored. Then 35 will be stored. Then it will go for the third row. 44, 16 and 22. So this is called as a matrix. When the elements are arranged in the form of rows and columns, it's called as matrix. So we know that this is a type of array. So how do we write index? So we know that index starts from 0, 0, 1, 2. But this represents only one column, right? So what about the remaining columns? So we have a problem here. To solve that, we have one more set of indices. So this index here represents only the first row. Second index represents the second row. And third index represents the third row. So that we can call them as only the row index, which represents the rows. The same way we have columns also. So we can use another set of indices 0, 1, 2. They represents the columns so that they can be called as column index. So we have 2 set of indices. So 10 is standing at the position 0, 0. 20 is standing at the position 0, 1. And 30 is standing at the position 0, 2. To declare such an array, we need row size as well as column size. Row size means number of rows in the array. So we have 3 rows. So the row size is 3. We have column size as 3 because there are 3 columns. And I have declared it as int. So int means integer. So you can store only integer type of data. To access an element 15, you should know the row index as well as column index. To access element 35, you should know the row index, that is 1, and column index is 2. To access an element, if you have to use 2 indices, such type of array is called as two-dimensional array, 2D array. To access each and every element of the array, you have to use 2 indices, row index as well as column index. So we can say that the first element is stored at a of 0, 0, then a of 0, 1, a of 0, 2. The first index is row index, that represents the row 0. Second represents the column index 0, 1, 2. Same as that, a of 1, 0, a of 1, 1 and a of 1, 2. A of 2, 0, a of 2, 1 and a of 2, 2. How do we represent an element of two-dimensional array? The array name, A is the array name. Then you have to write row index and column index. How do we declare a two-dimensional array? Data type, array name, row size and column size. So how to input elements into two-dimensional array? So you can write a of 0, 0 is 10. A of 0, 1 is 20. So you can write any random values like that. That is one method. So other method you already learnt. Int a of 3, 3 is equal to 10, 20, 30, 25. We are writing all the values like this. So by default it will just divide it into rows and columns because we have declared a of 3, 3. So it will make 3 rows and 3 columns. Now let's learn how to input elements into two-dimensional array using for loop. So we learned how to input elements into one-dimensional array. So we know that for I is equal to 0, I less than 5, I plus plus, C in a of 5. So we learned this code already. So how many loops are there? Only one for loop. To input elements into 2D array, we have to use 2 for loops. Let's see the code now. For I is equal to 0, I less than 3, I plus plus. For j is equal to 0, j less than 3, j plus plus, C in a of ij. So we have 2 loops. One loop is inside another loop. The first loop represents the row I is equal to 0 to I is equal to 2. 0, 1, 2. Second loop represents the columns 0, 1, 2. So I is equal to 0, I less than 3. J is equal to 0, j less than 3. So how do you input element using cin command? So a of ij. Let me explain this code with an example. The first statement is for I is equal to 0, I less than 3, I plus plus. So I is 0, 0 is less than 3, that is true. So it will enter the first for loop. So inside first for loop you have one more for loop. There j is equal to 0, j less than 3. So 0 less than 3, that is true. So what is inside the second for loop? We have cin statement. Cin a of ij. So I is 0, j is 0. So cin a of 0, 0. So I will enter a random value that can be any value. So I have entered the value as 10. Then j will be incremented. So j became 1 now. So 1 is less than 3. That is true. Cin a of 0, 1. So I value is not changed here, but j value is changed. So I value is 0, j value is 1. So I will enter another number. So I is 0, j is 1. J is incremented. J became 2 now. 2 is less than 3. That is true. Then you will enter the for loop. So cin a of 0, 2. So I will enter a value. J value will be incremented. J became 3 now. 3 less than 3 is false. So j loop will stop executing. It will go back to the I loop again because we have not finished with I loop. So what happens? I value was 0, that will be incremented. So I became 1 now. Again, I is 1, 1 less than 3, that is true. So we have to enter the first loop. So inside first loop we have the second loop. So again j is 0, 0 less than 3, that is true. Seen a of 1 0 because I became 1. So 1 0. Here some value will be entered. So I will enter the value as 25. J is incremented. J became 1. 1 less than 3 is true. Seen a of 1 1. So I will enter a value that is 15. J plus plus. J is equal to 2. 2 is less than 3. That is true. Then you have to enter a value. Seen a of 1 2. So I will enter a value that is 35. A of 1 2. J is incremented. J became 3. 3 less than 3 is false. So J loop will stop there. It will go back to I again. So I value will be incremented. Now I became 2. It was 1 before. It became 2. So I is equal to 2. 2 is less than 3. That is true. So it will go inside the first loop. So we have another for loop inside the first loop. So J is equal to 0. 0 less than 3. That is true. Seen a of 2 0. You have to enter a value. I have entered 44. J plus plus. J became 1. 1 less than 3 is true. Then again you have to enter the value. J plus plus. J is equal to 2. 2 is less than 3. That is true. Seen a of 2 2. You have to enter a value. 22. I have entered 22. So J plus plus. J became 3. 3 less than 3 is false. You have to stop there. So again go back to I. So I plus plus. I became 3. 3 less than 3. Look at this, 3 less than 3 is false. So I loop also will stop there. So we have entered all the values from A of 0 0 to A of 2 2. Now let's learn how to print the elements of a two-dimensional array. So here we have the statements. There are two for loops. One for loop is inside another for loop. So the first for loop, I is equal to 0, I less than 3 and I plus plus, that has two statements inside that. So what are the two statements? For loop j is equal to 0, j less than 3, j plus plus and cout slash n. Inside second for loop we have only one statement, that is cout aij slash t. So we already learned this statement cout a of I slash t in the previous topic. I will explain why we are using slash n here when I am tracing the first for loop. Now let's trace the first for loop. I is equal to 0, I less than 3, I plus plus. So I is equal to 0, 0 is less than 3, that is true. So it will enter the first for loop. So inside first for loop we have another for loop. What is that? J is equal to 0, j less than 3. So 0 less than 3, that is true. So since it is true, it will enter the second for loop. What we have inside second for loop? Cout a of ij slash t. So I is 0 here, j is also 0. So it will print a of 0 0. A of 0 0 is 10. 10 will be printed. Then it will leave a tab. Then j value will be incremented. J became 1 now. 1 is less than 3. That is true. Cout a of 0 1. So what is a of 0 1? That is 20. 20 will be printed. Then it will leave a tab. J will be incremented then. J became 2. 2 less than 3 is true. Then cout a02 slash t. So a02 is 30. Then j value will be incremented by 1. So j became 3 now. 3 less than 3 is false. So it will stop. So the j loop will stop there. So next statement is cout slash n. So we know that we have already printed the elements of first row 10, 20, 30. Next element should be printed in the next line. so that we are giving a /n, so that then all the elements of next row will be printed in the next line. After that it will go back to I loop. So I value will be incremented by 1. So I becomes 1 now. So I is 1. 1 is less than 3. That is true. So it will enter the loop. Inside the loop we have one more loop. J is equal to 0. 0 less than 3. That is true. So we have cout statement. Cout A of 10 /t. So it will print 10 element, that is 25. Then J value will be incremented. J became 1. 1 is less than 3. That is true. Cout A of 11. That is 15. 15 will be printed. Then J value will be incremented. Then J is equal to 2. 2 is less than 3. That is true. Then we are printing A of 1, 2. That is 35. Then J value will be incremented. J became 3 now. 3 less than 3 is false. So it will come out of the J loop. What is next? Cout /n. So control will go to next row. Means the next elements will be printed in the next row. So I will be incremented then. I became 2 now. So I is 2 now. 2 less than 3. That is true. It will enter the loop. So inside the first for loop we have one more for loop. J is equal to 0. 0 is less than 3. That is true. Cout A of 20. That is 44. That will be printed. Then J will be incremented. J became 1 now. 1 less than 3 is true. So it will print A of 21. So A of 21 is 16. Then J value will be incremented. J became 2 now. 2 less than 3 is true. Then it will print A of 22. So A of 22 is 22. J plus plus. J became 3 now. 3 less than 3 is false. Then next statement is cout /n. So control will go to next line. So we don't have anything to print now. So what happens after this statement is executed? Control will go back to I. So I plus plus I is equal to 3. Now I became 3. So I became 3. So we know that 3 less than 3 is false. So I loop will stop there. So we have printed all the statement as a matrix in the form of rows and columns.